Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Tom Drost, president of Logical Engine, the creators of EstimateRocket and JobRocket. EstimateRocket is cloud-based mobile and desktop software that enables service contract projects from lead to paid. And JobRocket is manpower planning and scheduling tool that works hand in hand with EstimateRocket once you land the projects. It's a must for customers managing multiple crews and forecasting manpower months in advance. As I said, good afternoon and welcome to today's success webinar, Optimizing Your Daily Workflow with EstimateRocket. Looks like I've picked a relatively interesting topic. We've got a all-time record turnout here for our success webinar, so hopefully it'll be good for everyone. We are recording this session as well, and it will be posted on our YouTube channel within a couple days of the seminar. I do highly recommend people subscribe to our YouTube channel. That way, as we do post new videos, not only for these webinars, but also for educational webinars that we do quite frequently, get a notification of those. It makes it an easy way to keep track of what's new and what's going on. So with that said, I'm going to jump into today's topic, optimizing your daily workflow with EstimateRocket. So most of you, as I've seen in the registration list, are definitely EstimateRocket users. So that's a good thing. I'm sure there's a few people that are not using it yet. And I do think we probably hit on some interesting topics. So things we're going to cover today: taming your dashboard. So mainly going to focus there just on keeping track of assignments and reminders, how to reset them, some ways to handle it when they do get a little out of control, and just kind of a process and some guidelines for you for best use. We're also going to cover keys to project workflow, so managing your projects from start to finish. That's just really going to discuss about what are the project steps and when do you need to advance the project and how do we need to keep track of that. Can be a very important piece, and that will help to keep EstimateRocket up to date information and useful for you as we go forward. Searching magic. A lot of people probably underutilize the search Rocket on the various places that it's available, and it's a really powerful tool. So we're going to spend a few minutes talking about searching and also filtering, which you can do in the search bar on several of the screens. And then finally, we're going to talk about some reporting insights, understanding how your business is doing, what reports are available. That's another, I think, underutilized feature of EstimateRocket is people don't really understand just exactly how many things are available in the EstimateRocket reports. So hopefully they'll all be interesting topics. And we're going to move right on to the first one, taming your dashboard. So how many people, how many users, and by the way, one other thing I didn't mention, there's a questions box in your dashboard for GoToWebinar. Please feel free to put questions there. Love getting questions. I'll probably take most of them at the end of the session, but definitely put your questions there. I definitely love the feedback, and I'll be happy to answer all your questions, even if they're not necessarily related exactly to today's topic. So don't be afraid to ask questions. It'll help us all get more out of it. If you're thinking of it, so are at least half of the rest of the people listening. So don't hesitate to ask. Okay. Back to taming your dashboard, assignments and reminders, dealing with the late tab. It's just going to start out by asking how many people have a dashboard that has way more late projects than anything else. How are we going to handle that and manage it? So that's really my number one starting point here, is because I think everybody ends up in this situation where you've got a ton of projects in the late tab. And there's a couple reasons that happens, and there's a couple ways to address it. So why are things on the late tab? Because the assignment date or the scheduled date has passed. That's a simple reason. So if you haven't updated that project or managed it, it's going to fall into the late tab on your project screen and on your dashboard screen. So what are some different strategies that we can use to deal with it? So back on the dashboard again, you've got two places to look at this. You can look, if you're on the late tab, it is going to be the most recently late items at the top, all the way down to as far back in the past as you have them. So that shows you the things that just got late recently. So here I've got, so it looks like 6 items in my late bucket from yesterday that I didn't take care of. So those we can certainly take care of, and I'll show you a couple ways to do that in a moment. If I click on the All tab, that reverses things. That shows me my oldest late items first. So this is working from the bottom up. Or the top down, I guess. But these are my ancient ones. These are the things that have been out here for a long time and just haven't gotten dealt with. I've got one back from 2015. Probably want to close this project. So let's start right there. Let's pick this old project. Looks like the lead never happened. What are we going to do when we get to that project and we want to get rid of it? So a couple things. First, let's go into the project edit. Hit the little pencil next to project, and let's go to internal notes and put a hashtag lost no reason or no contact. So this may be a new thing for many of you, hashtags. So hashtags on the internal notes of the project are really key to a couple things, mainly to searching. So and categorizing your work. So in this case, what I really want to do is categorize why we lost this project. So I'm going to say lost no contact. And I'll show you a little bit later how we're going to use that. So that's just the first place. I just want to identify why we lost it. You don't have to do that, but I do recommend it. So we might say lost no contact, lost price, or lost competition, whatever different things you might track as reasons that you lost a deal or a lead. So in this case, they just didn't contact us and reach out after they asked for a proposal or an estimate. Once we've set the search tag, we click on the More button and we cancel the project. So canceled projects don't go away. They're still in the system. There are still ways to search on them, but they're not going to show up in your late bucket anymore, and they're not going to show up as active projects on the project screen. So effectively, we've put this one off to the side, and we won't be bothered by it anymore. So once the project is canceled, the good news is we can find the project by searching through our canceled projects. And when we do find it, we have a reactivate project option. So we can cancel it, and then later, if the customer does call us back, we can use the More Reactivate button to bring this project back to life and follow it through its normal course in EstimateRocket. So that's what we really want to do with the ancient projects that we know we've lost the deal. It's not coming back. It's time to give up on it and move on. And then we can go back to our dashboard and go on to the next one. So one other thing to note, especially when you're cleaning up your dashboard or cleaning up your projects list, is if you want to get back to where you are easily, what you want to do is use a right click on the project view button and open link in a new tab or in a new window. And so what that lets you do, very simply, is go into that project, do some work on it. I'm going to do another lost no contact. Got to work on my spelling here. And update that. And then I'm going to cancel that project. Okay. And then I close that tab and I'm back where I left off, and I can go right on to the next project. So this is a handy technique actually a lot of the time when you're trying to go through a list of projects and want to keep getting back to where you left off. Just right click on the project and open in a new tab or open in a new window, whichever one is more convenient for you. And that way, when you do that, you don't lose your spot in your list that you're working on. Now I can go in and I'll just cancel that one. Oh, looks like we invoiced that one. So we should probably just add a payment. And we added the payment, and then, well, in this case, we probably have to add another invoice, so we'd really have to deal with this project. So this is one of those cases where this project is out of balance. We've invoiced part of it. We didn't invoice all of it. At this point, it doesn't want us to cancel this project. What it really wants us to do is to balance this project out. So we either need to make the value of the project equal to what's been invoiced and paid by putting in a negative line item, that's really the primary way to do it, unless it has actually been paid, in which case we can invoice it and pay it. All right. I knew I'd get into some interesting things as I go through my late tab. Fortunately, this is my my demo system, so we've got all kinds of baggage in this system because we use it for demos. So, okay, so that's a couple of ideas on how to close the projects and one technique. And you can do this pretty much from anywhere you want to do it. So I'm working on my dashboard now. I can also go to my projects tab and I can work off of my project screen. Normally on the project screen, over on the right, you want to select what it is you're looking for. So most of the time, if we've got projects that have been out there forever and they're really dead projects, they're probably going to fall into the pendings group. So we could click on pendings, and that just narrows our list down that we're working at. So, as you're navigating your projects over here on the right, by selecting the category of projects that you want to look at first, you're always going to narrow down the list of projects that you have to view. So good idea to click on the right first and select, limit your list to what you want to look at, and then you can go ahead and manage them. So in my projects list for my pendings, they're all late for me. So again, I can just go through this list at this point and chip away at them, mark them as canceled, and clean up my list. Or I can make a note, or I can call the person. Lots of actions we can do, but this is your cleanup list, the things that are in the late list. As I mentioned, once we've canceled a project, how do we get back to it? So the way we get back to a canceled project is on the projects tab. If you want to look specifically for a canceled project, you just click on canceled, and that will show you all of your canceled projects. You can search here just like you can anywhere else and find that canceled project, and then you can go into it and reactivate it if you need to, or whatever action you need to take on it. So by clicking on canceled, that's going to get you to the right place. The other thing that you can do is you click on all projects. If you click on all projects, that's going to allow you to search through open projects, completed projects, and canceled projects. So this is like the super search. If you don't know the status of this project and you want to find it, click on all projects first, and now you're searching the whole universe of EstimateRocket projects. That can be very handy sometimes when you're not sure what the status is and the customer calls or has a question about something and you're really not sure what bucket that project falls into. So there we go. So let me just go back and so we've looked at the all tab, discussed how that sorts, and the other tabs on the dashboard represent the future and late projects. So first thing I'm going to do, just to show you how to manage the late tab, is I've got these projects from yesterday. So I didn't get to them. If I got to them yesterday, there's even a quicker way than I'm going to show you to do this, and I'll show you what I'm going to do from here. I can either click on the project, and I can use the reassign button. In this case, it's a scheduled work order, so I'd actually have to reschedule it for a new date, or I can unschedule it if I'm not sure when it's going to happen and I want to reschedule it. So I'm going to just pick a non-scheduled project. So I'm supposed to schedule an estimate for Rob. So I'm going to move. So I'm going to click on that one, and I'm going to use the reassign button. So the reassign button does a lot of things for you potentially. The big thing that the reassign button does is it allows you to set a new date for that project. So that's what I'm going to use it for right now. I'm going to just quickly, I clicked on the date drop down, I clicked on the little circle button, that sets it to today, and I'm going to reassign. And that will move that project as we see in a minute on the dashboard. Now I have one project under today. So a quicker way to do that same thing is to use the little drag and drop icon. So this little crosshair is at the top of each group is a drag and drop icon. Once I click the drag and drop icon, then I can just drag the project. It brings up the reassign dialog, and I can reset it to today and move forward. So complete work, complete estimate. I'm going to move that to today. So that's kind of quite a bit quicker way to move things rather than going into the project, making the adjustment and changing it. Now, one other thing that I haven't been doing is I haven't been putting in notes. And that's the other thing that you really want to do when you're using the reassign or reschedule button, is use the notes. And anytime you see the notes come up and you've done something to this project that's of interest, you really want to use this tool to leave notes, which will collect with the project so you have a history of what you've done with that project. Called and left, we'll say called and left message. I'm going to setting the due date for first week in August. And I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I'm going to set it out to, let's pick August the 3rd. So now I'm rescheduling it, and I've made a note. So next time I go in to look at this project, I'll see those notes and I'll know what happened the last time we worked on that project. So again, we're dragging and dropping to reset the dates for it. And then we're also using the notes feature to document what happened. Why are we moving it? What's the deal on this particular project? So again, powerful, quick ways to move things. Again, drag and drop, very handy. When do I want to follow up on this? I want to follow up on it today. I could be moving this to future dates if I knew what those dates were. So again, that certainly works as well. And we go down the list here. So that's the process. So the fewer things that you get into your late bucket, the easier life's going to be. So looks like somebody just asked about the mentioned that they don't see the drop-down calendar. So if you're working on a dialogue and you don't see the drop-down calendar, that's a function of what browser you're using. So I highly recommend using the Chrome browser wherever possible. It is definitely the best user interface experience. So and it's available on all the different platforms. And it'll probably may well make your life better in a whole bunch of different ways. So I highly recommend using Chrome for your browser. So let's see. Back to my notes. Okay, so we looked at drag and drop, and I called it drag and drag. One other thing to show you is if you go to the Future tab. So the Future tab has the things for today, and it also has things, all the other things that are scheduled out in the future. The nice thing about the Future tab is if I don't get everything done today, you can go to the Future tab, and from the Future tab, you can actually just drag things to the day you want to do them on. So if you've already got something for that next day or farther out in the future, in those cases, you can just drag them to those days. You can still use the same approach where if you drag it onto a day, that's where it's going to schedule it. If the day you want doesn't have anything scheduled yet, then what you need to do is simply drag it to a non-day and then schedule it on that day. So we don't have anything scheduled for the 27th yet, so I'm going to go ahead and pick that on the calendar. And now we've got an item on the 27th. So in many cases, you're going to have future items that are going to be, required on every day. This just gives you the ability to, to drag them directly to that day with not a lot of extra effort. So, as with everything in EstimateRocket, there's always a variety of different ways to do things, and hopefully that'll help speed up the process of keeping up with the late tab. One last thought about the late tab is that if you've got things that are not dead or you have a long follow-up date on them, you can set the reminder dates as far out as you want. So maybe I don't want to call this particular person until next year. I can just bring up the calendar and I can say, hey, you know what? Let's go out to December. Now let's go to January 15th. And we can set it to January 15th. We should probably leave a little note, customer is out of the country until January. And now what we've done basically is set that out so we won't forget it. It's going to pop up on our dashboard again come January, and we'll know that we need to take action there. So managing the late tab isn't just, constantly moving things to get them out of the way or just canceling things. It's adjusting the reminder date so you know the next time you want to look at this thing and take action on it. So hopefully that'll help some with giving you some strategies on how to keep your calendar and your schedule up to date and make it a little bit easier to work with. And here's my final comment on that is 5 minutes a day. If you spend 5 minutes a day on your late tab, maybe even less than that, and reassign the lates and reschedule the today things that didn't happen, your late tab will be small. You'll always have new things popping up on your to-do list for the day that are calls to make or appointments to set or work to do, and it'll keep you much more organized and efficient. So just hopefully that will help with taming our dashboards. Okay, the next thing really is sort of related to the dashboard and to reassignment. So keys to project workflow really boils down to you managing these dialogues. So, every time you hit a green button, or if you hit reassign or reschedule or unschedule, you're going to get a dialogue. And it's very important to answer the questions in these dialogues. That's again part of the secret of keeping your late tab where it needs to be, as empty as possible, and to have things popping up again on your dashboard when it really is the right time to be looking at them. So every time you see one of these dialogues that has a who and a when, that's a place where you want to take a second and make a decision. So who is going to be the person you want to assign it to. So in many cases, that's probably still going to be yourself, but you might be assigning it to someone else. If you have another team member that you need to assign it to, this is the place to do it. And this dialogue comes up not only when we're doing, setting the dates, it also comes up when we create an invoice. It comes up at every step of the project as we advance the project. And the key here is that the date, the when should it be completed, that's the key, the other key to proactively managing your dashboard, because you set these dates based on when you really want to see this thing as being relevant again. So in a lot of cases, for example, when you send out the estimate, when you complete the estimate, in a lot of cases, if you're using the automated follow-ups, you might now want to see it on your dashboard again for 4 or 5 days, or maybe even a week. Because if you're using the automated follow-ups, EstimateRocket's going to be contacting the customer for you, so you don't necessarily need to see it again. Even if you are going to call them the next day, set the date to the next day. Don't leave it set to today, because that way it'll show up in your dashboard tomorrow. And again, if you're proactive in setting these to, think of that when should it be completed as when is the next time I want to see this on my dashboard. That's the key. So just managing that when those dialogues come up is going to help keep things off the late tab and on the future tab to do them. And again, this is, boils down to managing your to-do list. So who, when, and what is the notes. So use the notes field to fill in whatever you need, to make sure that the next person who looks at this is gonna know what happened and what they're supposed to do, or what the next action is going to be. Makes a great history for the projects. A lot of our customers that are using that really fully, when you look at their projects, you can see the whole story of the projects down in the notes section, and it's a really, really powerful tool. Really great for when somebody gets a call and a customer's upset about something or has a question about something. You can scan down into the notes section and see exactly what's happened, and that'll empower the person answering the call to really, respond to that question appropriately without necessarily having to hang up and wait, but you can get to it quickly. So very, very powerful tool that is in the notes for sure. And I've just got 3 buttons on this first slide. So schedule, reassign, and unschedule. Those are key times when you're setting dates and times. And then the other place where you're doing it, oops, sorry, I made 2 slides, are schedule estimate and reschedule. So there's two different dialogues when you're scheduling an estimate or scheduling work. It's going to show you the calendar, and you're going to be able to drag the project onto the calendar, and then it will give you the dialogue. So a little bit different than when you're just doing the regular reassign. So there are two types of things in EstimateRocket that are appointments, and those are the scheduling of an estimate appointment and scheduling of a work appointment. All of the other things are simply reminders. So that's why you get the calendar when you're scheduling an estimate or scheduling work, and you don't necessarily get the calendar when you're simply scheduling a reminder. That kind of sums up my thoughts on keeping your late tab managed and managing that project workflow. I can't overemphasize how important it is to keep up with advancing the projects during the course of the project. Many people, after they complete the estimate, don't necessarily accept the work, and then they don't necessarily schedule the work, and they don't. And what happens is, it means that when you go to look at that project, or anyone goes to look at that project in EstimateRocket, the state of the project and the status of the project and all the information you can read about it doesn't really reflect where that project is. If you keep advancing the projects using the green button, you're gonna have a much better EstimateRocket experience. Hopefully most of you are already doing that. So next thing is searching. I call it searching magic. So one of the things that I've been working with software for a lot of years, and I will say one of the things that it took me a little while to get the hang of is that the searching in EstimateRocket is ridiculously flexible. And so when you first come to the projects page, for example, you think, and I happen to have a search in there already, but when you first come to the projects page, a lot of people want to kind of scroll to find what they're looking for. Well, when you have a lot of projects, obviously that's going to take a long time. So every time I come to the projects page, the first thing I do is start typing something. A name, part of a name, a phone number, an address, or a street name, some fact about the thing or person that I'm looking for at this particular point in time. And as you can see, as I type, it's going to automatically start narrowing down my list until I type something like I just did that doesn't exist. So in this case, I type John, and I type 5775. So I happen to know that 5775 is the last 4 digits of a phone number on one or more of my customers in my demo. And John obviously is a pretty common name, and maybe the customer, but somewhere the name John is part of these projects, and so is the number 5775. So my point is a couple things about search. So the search is an and search, and what that means is that EstimateRocket is only going to give you back things where all of the things that you've typed exist somewhere in the project. So John space 5775 means that these are two separate things that I'm looking for, and they both need to be in the project. So if I type another word like a hashtag for residential, you'll notice that limits me back down to only one project, because only one project has the residential hashtag on it, and John and 5775. So just keep that in mind with your searches, that every space you put in makes a second search, and all the things have to be found for it to return you the thing you're looking for. The other thing that means is, in most cases, less is more. The less you type, the quicker you're going to find what you want. So don't worry about typing a whole street address. Just type the name of the street and the person's first name. 99% of the time, that's going to get you exactly where you want to be with very little typing. So again, very flexible. Do some experiments. It's fun to kind of play around a little bit with the search and see how it works, and how you can find the different things that you're looking for. It's pretty fascinating, and it's really, really powerful. So and the search works everywhere there's a search bar. The search works the same way. So on the report screen, on the dashboard, on the clients, everywhere you have searching capabilities, it works the same way. One other a lot of people may not be familiar with is filtering. So filtering is a little bit different than searching. Filtering gives you a capability of being a little bit more specific about exactly what you want. So I'll show you an example of a filter. So when I click on the little filter button, I get the little filter dialog. And the first field here is a set of choices. So near. So I can say near is Boston, Massachusetts. And so that just limited my list that I had of a couple hundred projects, of 600 projects, down to 18 projects that it believes, based on the address, are near Boston, Massachusetts. So it's important that you do a city, comma, and the state in order to use the near search. You can get away sometimes with the city, but it's not 100% reliable. So I always recommend city, comma, state if you're doing a near search. So that is basically sets up a radius search for that particular criteria. So I'm gonna just put that back on. And then the other cool thing about that is, and you can see if you click on the show map button, you can see what it's using as a radius around Boston. So those are where it's finding the projects. I just happen to have a lot of a lot of my projects are all in the same town, so it's quite a strong grouping nearby me. So that's another neat thing. And to mention the mapping again, also is the hide and show map. That's going to show us a map of what we've searched for. So again, very handy. So you could do this for a zip code as well. In the search bar, you could just put a zip code. You don't need to use the near filter for that. So what else can we filter for? We can filter for a distance. That allows you to set the range or the circle that it uses for the near search. So you can set a distance to a certain number of miles. The next series of filters are dates: created date, estimated date, accepted date, and work completed date, and invoice date. Just one note about invoice date: because you can create multiple invoices for a project, the invoice date is the date that gets stamped on the project when you click the create invoice button, or complete invoice button, complete invoice button for the project, or the mark invoice as sent button if you signed up a while ago. We've actually changed that button to complete invoice because of the fact that it actually creates an invoice for you if you don't already have one. We can search for owner, project owner. So I can say, show me all the projects where the owner is Steve. And that limits me down to 5 projects that Steve owns. We can search for project owner. We can search for estimator. We can search for a supervisor. And then we have some totals that are kind of neat. You can, for example, I can say, show me projects where the invoice total is more than $500. Now there might not be any. Oops, looks like there's one that Steve B owns. I'm going to get rid of Steve B and say, okay, so these are all, and again, this filter is very handy when you're looking at sales reports. Show me all my invoice total more than $500. I can also do that on subtotal or total. So the subtotal is your subtotal for your project, and tax is your sales tax, and total would be your total of the subtotal plus the sales tax. So I can search for projects whose project value is more than $500 as well. And when you want to undo these, you can just click the X on them. Again, very helpful when you're looking at sales reports. This is a good way to see, hey, what are all my, what do my bigger projects look like? Or the opposite, how many little jobs am I doing versus how many big jobs am I doing? It makes it very easy to kind of drill into that. And then we can also do some things with billing city and billing zip if we want to filter it down to a city or a zip code, or lead sources. I'm on the project screen right now. Some of these are probably a lot more useful to use when you're on the report screen. All right, so that gives us some ideas about filtering. And then the final one is, if you get a filter or a report that you like, you can, and I'm going to actually go do this one on the report screen. See, I'm using that open in new tab. It's very handy. You'll end up with a lot of tabs open, but it'll save you a lot of time. So I'm going to go and I'm going to say, I want to look for all the projects where the total is more than $1,000. And notice that my totals just changed, which we're going to talk about again in a few minutes, and it reduced the number of projects that I'm seeing here. And now, if I want to save this as a report, you'll notice that there's some information up in the address bar. I can basically come up here and I can either do a bookmark. That's one way to do it. Or depending upon what browser you're using, you can just drag it into your shortcuts bar. So now if I go back to the projects page and I want to say, hey, let's check out my report of projects that are greater than $1,000, it instantly brings me to that report and it already has the filter. So by saving shortcuts, once you get a report filtered or searched the way you want to search it, you can create a shortcut on either on your bookmarks toolbar or in your bookmarks list, and build yourself a list of reports. And very, very handy tool to use for that. Can really speed up getting to the reports that you use on a regular basis. All right, so we think we've kind of covered searching, and just had a couple of examples here of searching before and after. Before my search, I had 125 projects for $369,000, and after my search for residential interior, I now have 24 projects for $102,000. So the searching, as you type it, dynamically changes all the reports that you're looking at. So very quick, very easy to use, and easy to save. So you can easily save a shortcut to the residential interior report for a year and get those results whenever you want them. And then I just had another filtering example here as well, where supervisor is Steve B, and shows that the limited results on that. So filtering, very powerful tool, and definitely saving shortcuts. So we've already talked, viewed reporting just a little bit, and that's our last topic is reporting insights. There is a lot of valuable information in your EstimateRocket system. Just by running the system and using the system, it is gathering a vast amount of information for you that is useful in a number of ways. So first, on the right, or on the left, excuse me, is a list of the different types of reports, the different reports that you have available to you. So we always start out at the summary reports. That's the default report level. And then, but under that, we've got a sales, receipts, and sales tax reports that are great for bookkeeping purposes or to tie your to your accounting system. We've got profitability and closing ratio report. So the profitability report is only available in the enterprise version, but the closing ratio report is available in all of them. And we'll take a quick look at one of those in a couple seconds. And then you've got open estimates, open work orders, pending invoices, and open invoices. And you've got the various project status reports as well. When you first get to the reports page, most of these a summary version of almost all of those reports is presented for you immediately. So you see, sales by lead source, sales by estimator, new projects by source. And I did, another thing to mention, especially for reporting and searching, when we were talking about putting hashtags in your projects, make sure you're using the lead source field. Even if you don't have a lot of different lead sources, that is just an invaluable tool. Your sales are coming to you from somewhere, whether it's cold calling or whether it's referrals from other contractors. They're coming to you from somewhere, and being able to know that is really, really invaluable. Guarantee that tracking that will really pay off for you in terms of what you need to know. And it looks like there's a question here that I think is relevant to where we're at. So I'm just going to take a quick look at that. So the question is, what's the difference between sales by lead source and completed work orders? Oops, I can't expand that anymore. Oh, hang on. What's the difference between the sales by lead source and completed work orders? Okay, so the difference between those reports is sales by lead source is based on invoices. So until something is invoiced, it's not going to show up in a report that's called sales or invoice. So completed work orders are based on the date you click the work completed button or the complete work button. So when you click the complete work button, it records the date and it records who the person was when you clicked that button. So if your field people are actually clicking that button, they'll get credit for having completed the work order. And if you're clicking that button in the office, you want to make sure you set that who completed the job to whoever did, and that will give you tracking on who's actually, who's the field person that's doing the work. Completed estimates, when the salesperson or the estimator hits the complete estimate button, it records the date for that. So that stamps the completed estimates with that date, and it shows up in the completed estimates bucket. And finally, we have the estimates down in the middle, and the accepted estimates button is basically when you click the accept work button. It stamps the date of that and who the estimator was that got that project accepted. And so between these various reports, in a moment when I show you the closing ratio report, that's kind of a combination of several of these different reports. That kind of gives you a quick analysis of what that information is. And then the open reports over on the right-hand side for the different statuses of your projects, open invoices or unpaid invoices, pending invoices or projects that you've completed work but haven't generated any invoices yet for that project. So those are ones that are, pretty high priority to make sure we get those invoiced because we've completed them. And then open work orders and open estimates are, as they sound. Okay, so that's the summary report. And then just to show a couple of the profitability report. And again, this is an enterprise only feature, but if you're doing job costing, this allows you to track both the estimated cost of the project and the actual cost of the project. And we do, in the fairly near future, we're going to be releasing a time tracking module that's going to allow your field crews to track their time, and that time will automatically get recorded back with the projects to fill in this profitability analysis, and of course to use for generating, sending to your payroll company as well. So very, very powerful report. All the this is for projects that have been completed, and it goes by sales, shows you your estimated hours, costs, and profit and margin, and then actual hours, costs, profit and margin, and the differences. So you can pretty much get a full spectrum analysis of your projects, what went right, what went wrong, and where you've got some work to do. And of course, searching works here as well. Oops, went too far. Okay, so that's the profitability report. This is a new report that I'm pretty excited about. It is coming soon, possibly very soon. And this report is basically a forecast of what's happening for this week, this month, this whatever period, based on projects that are currently, where the work is currently scheduled. So for example, if you look at this report for a week, and for a given upcoming week, it will show you hours if you're tracking hours, and it will also show you the project total versus the uninvoiced total. So a lot of people will be able to use this as a forecast of a future forecast of what they can expect for revenues. So if you've got $26,000 worth of projects and you have 17,000 uninvoiced, there's a good chance that you're going to be invoicing that amount at the end of that project date. So this report will be a really, really powerful tool for kind of forecasting where you're at and what's in the pipeline, what's in the queue for being worked, which will subsequently be invoiced. Another coming soon report is the work progress report. So this report is similar to the work schedule report, except this report is going to cover all of the projects that are in the work order state that have not been completed. So this is sort of a checklist report that you can look at to say, hey, here's when this work job is scheduled, it's still open, and here's what we've got uninvoiced on the project. So at the end of the month, when you come to your billing cycle, if you do a monthly billing cycle, you can look at this report and say, hey, here's all the things that are being worked that either have actual hours or have had something invoiced against them that we probably are going to be doing some more invoicing on. So call that the work in progress or work progress report. And that's it for today. So we're on to questions. I do have one question here, and that's an easy one. You probably want to ask that question. The question is there a way to remove pricing from the work order? There absolutely is. What you need to do is in the chat in the app, you basically want to go into the app and let's see my little icon there. You basically want to go into the app and use the little chat and say, how do I hide pricing on my work order? And we can help you out with that. You can also probably do that on our help page. I'm not sure how many people have been on our help page, but our help page, if you click the little help button, is really pretty cool and has answers to a lot of your questions. So hiding the dollar amounts on work, I said hide price, and hiding dollar amounts on work orders pops up, and that just gives you specific instructions on exactly how to do that. So our help site's a very handy tool. If you haven't had a chance to visit it, I definitely recommend it. Any other questions? Any topics for future webinars that you'd like? We always love feedback, so any ideas you have or thoughts you have on what you'd like to see or what you'd like to go through would really question, how can I change the reports in my summary? Currently, we don't have a way for you to select different reports or to move those reports around. But Pedro, certainly if you have some thoughts on that and offline you want to reach out, we're always looking to add new things and open to ideas. So if you have some thoughts on that, I'd love to hear them. Any other questions? Oh, one more. Sure. Question is, can I talk about EstimateRocket and JobRocket working together? Absolutely. So basically, EstimateRocket kind of takes your project through its whole life cycle and handles every stage. JobRocket is really all about the work order stage. And what JobRocket does is gives you the ability to, first of all, plan projects out into the future. So you can plan as far out as you need to go in the future for manpower planning or capacity planning, and it works with a Gantt style schedule. And the way it works together with EstimateRocket is as the actual hours and actual expense information is entered into JobRocket, that information is sent back to EstimateRocket, and that actually will feed the profitability report if you're using JobRocket. So you don't have to manually enter the cost information into EstimateRocket. It will automatically be entered into EstimateRocket from JobRocket. All right. Any other? Oh, wait. There we go. On the schedule. The schedule does not currently transfer from JobRocket to EstimateRocket. That may be something that happens in the future. There are a couple of things that we're working on along those lines to make the JobRocket schedule a little bit more accessible to crew. That'll be part of the time tracking option that we're going to be introducing. So I think that will help with that, but not currently. Sure, you're welcome, Brandy. How can I change? currently have currently have a flexible date range on the reporting. So the one thing that you might be able to do for that, Pedro, depending upon which date you're looking at, which type of report you're looking at, a sales report, or is to use a combination of the date and the filter. So if you set the report, for example, for a week, from Friday to Thursday, and it's not going to be an easy way to do that. You could set it for a month. You could set the date range to a month, for example, and then if it's for invoices, you could use the filter to set. But that's going to be difficult. Yeah, you might want to again. That might be a good one to go offline with Pedro, and you might want to let me know what you're trying to accomplish there, because I might be able to give you a better idea how to do that. But currently, there's no built-in way to change, to change what a week is, what days are included in a week. At some point, we'll probably introduce a little bit more date flexibility in terms of, being able to enter a set of specific dates rather than having it be a standard date range for the week. Anyone have any additional questions? As I said, if you have if you do have questions, you can always contact us directly through the app or send us an email. And we'd love to hear from you, and definitely always open to hearing new things and ideas. If you do have ideas for webinars, I love to hear them. I try to make some things up and think that I hear and see that people ask a lot of questions about, but certainly if there's specific things people are interested in, we can definitely address that and present on it. All right, well, if there aren't any more questions, I would like to thank everybody for attending today, and I hope you all enjoyed it, and hopefully at least one or two things to take away from it. And we look forward to seeing you at our next EstimateRocket Success webinar. Have a great afternoon, everybody.